In a remote village called Kampa in West Bengal, in 1952, a little girl was born whose name would forever be inscribed in the history of reincarnation research. The case of Sukla Gupta belongs to Dr. Ian Stevenson's most convincing evidence that consciousness can survive the death of the body and be reborn. But this story is not merely about a child's strange memories. It's about how shadows of the past can creep into the present, and how souls can carry the deepest emotional bonds from a previous life. When Sukla was only 18 months old and could barely speak, she already showed an extraordinarily peculiar habit. She would cradle a pillow or piece of wood in her arms and constantly call it Minu, Minu. She said that Minu was her daughter. Her parents, K.N. Sen Gupta, a railway worker, and his wife, naturally assumed this was just childish play at first. After all, what child doesn't play house? But as Sukla grew and her speech developed, she began telling increasingly detailed and astonishing stories about another life in which she was Minu's mother. Sukla didn't just talk about her daughter. She spoke in detail about her husband, whom she consistently called Minu's father, exactly as traditional Hindu wives refer to their husbands. This form of address was particularly noteworthy, as how could a 5-year-old girl know such cultural subtleties? Sukla spoke in detail about her husband's 2 younger brothers, Ketu and Karuna. They all lived together, she said, in Rathtala, which was a district of the city of Bhatpara. The Gupta family knew Bhatpara, which lay about 11 kilometers south of them, but they had never in their lives heard of Rathtala, nor of the people she mentioned. This was particularly strange, since in such a small community, people usually know each other, at least by hearsay. Yet Sukla spoke of these places and people with such confidence, as if she had been there yesterday. As time passed, Sukla felt an increasingly strong desire to go to Rathtala. This wasn't a passing childish whim. The little girl persistently, almost desperately demanded to be taken there. She declared that if her parents wouldn't take her, she would go alone. This statement was frightening from the mouth of a 5-year-old child. What could K.N. Sen Gupta do? The caring father talked about the matter with friends and colleagues, hoping someone could help him understand his daughter's strange behavior. Eventually, he shared the problem with a railway colleague, S.C. Pal, an assistant station master. Fortunately, Pal lived near Bhatpara and had 2 cousins in the city. Through his cousins, Pal made an astonishing discovery. Bhatpara indeed had a district called Rathtala. Even more surprising was that a man named Ketu lived there, exactly the name Sukla had mentioned. The investigation dug even deeper. It turned out that Ketu had a sister-in-law named Mana, who had died several years earlier in 1948, leaving behind a small child called Minu. This discovery was simply shocking. How could a little girl from Kampa know such details about a distant family's life whom she had never met? Sen Gupta decided to thoroughly investigate the matter. He didn't want to make hasty decisions, but his daughter's behavior was becoming increasingly disturbing. With the consent of the family, who were also curious about the matter, he arranged a visit to Rathtala. Sukla confidently declared that she could show the way to the house, despite never having been there in her life. In 1959, when Sukla was about 5 years old, Sen Gupta and 5 other family members set off with her to Bhatpara. This wasn't an easy journey in those days, but the family was determined to solve the mystery. During the trip, Sukla was excited but confident. It was as if she were returning home. When they arrived in Bhatpara, something extraordinary happened. Sukla, this child who had never been there in her life, confidently took the lead. Avoiding all possible wrong turns, she led them without hesitation straight to the house of Amritalal Chakravarty. It later turned out that this was indeed the man she allegedly knew as her father-in-law in her previous life. As the group approached the house, chance would have it that Chakravarty was on the street. When Sukla saw him, something surprising happened. The naturally cheerful and direct little girl suddenly looked down shyly and behaved timidly, exactly as a young Hindu woman customarily behaves in the presence of an older male relative. This behavioral change was so sudden and natural that the companions watched in amazement. However, when Sukla wanted to enter the house, she suddenly became confused. She seemed unable to find the proper entrance. She wandered back and forth, looking for the entrance but couldn't find it where she expected it. This confusion later made perfect sense. It turned out that after Mana's death, the house entrance had been moved from the main street to a side alley. How could a child who had never been there know that the entrance used to be somewhere else? In the house, Sukla found herself in a room with 20 to 30 people. Family members and curious onlookers were all waiting to see what would happen. When Sukla was asked if she could identify her husband from among all these people, the little girl unhesitatingly and correctly pointed to Chakravarty. Those present watched this scene in silence. A 5-year-old girl who had never seen this man still knew who he was. But the most touching moment was yet to come. When Minu appeared, Sukla's reaction moved everyone present. The meeting was like an emotional reunion between a mother and daughter after a long separation. Sukla had been cradling an imaginary Minu in her arms since infancy, constantly talking about her, longing for her. Now, when she finally met her, the love and joy were so genuine that it would have been impossible to fake. Later, one of Mana's cousins decided to test Sukla. He falsely told her that Minu, who was away from Rathtala at the time, was seriously ill with a high fever. Sukla's reaction revealed everything. She began to cry, sobbing desperately, and it took a long time for her family to reassure her that Minu was actually healthy and well. This reaction wasn't acted. It was a mother's genuine despair for a sick child. Dr. Ian Stevenson, the world-renowned professor of psychiatry at the University of Virginia, who documented Sukla's case, paid particular attention to this detail. Minu was 12 years old, and Sukla only 5, Stevenson wrote. Minu had also grown taller, so Sukla said, "I am small." But within this limitation, Sukla played exactly the role of a mother toward a beloved daughter. This case made such a deep impression on Stevenson that he used it as one of his main pieces of evidence for the possibility of reincarnation. Over 41 years, Stevenson collected nearly 3,000 similar cases from around the world, but Sukla's case occupied a special place in his research. What made it special? First, Stevenson examined every aspect of the case extremely thoroughly. He ruled out the possibility that there could have been any prior connection between the two families. The Gupta family lived in Kampa, the Chakravarty family in Rathtala, 11 kilometers apart. At that time, this was a significant distance, especially for a railway worker's family. No one regularly traveled from one place to the other. Stevenson interviewed members of both families in detail, as well as neighbors and acquaintances. Every witness confirmed the same thing. The families had never met before Sukla's birth. There was no connection between them that could have explained the little girl's knowledge. Second, Sukla's knowledge was extremely specific and detailed. She didn't just know general things, but tiny details that only the family's inner circle could have known. She knew, for example, how Mana's husband related to family members, what life in the house was like, where the old entrance was. These were such intimate family details that a strange child could not have known them in any way. If you've enjoyed Sukla's fascinating story so far, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button so you don't miss further reincarnation cases and spiritual content. The story is really just beginning here. Dr. Satwant Pasricha, a renowned Indian psychologist who also studied similar cases, said this about Sukla's story. This case surpasses all known psychological explanations. The girl's knowledge is so deep and detailed that it's difficult to explain through normal means. The love she showed toward Minu was so genuine that it would have been impossible to act or learn. One of the most important insights from Stevenson's research was that reincarnation cases are often connected by emotional threads. This isn't a random process where any soul can be born into any body. Rather, it seems that love, trauma, or unfinished business draws the soul back to certain places or people. In Sukla's case, this attraction was maternal love. Mana died young when Minu was still an infant. For a mother, there is no greater pain than leaving a small child behind. This unfinished relationship, this unfulfilled maternal love, might have been what drew Mana's soul back to Earth to be close to her daughter again. Dr. Jim Tucker, who continued Stevenson's work at the University of Virginia, believes Sukla's case is special because it shows that consciousness can carry not only memories, but also the deepest emotional bonds from one life to another. When a 5-year-old girl shows maternal love toward another child she has officially never seen before, it poses a serious challenge to the materialist worldview. Critics of reincarnation research naturally question these cases. Philosopher Paul Edwards, for example, argued that these cases don't prove the existence of reincarnation, only that there are phenomena we don't yet fully understand. Skeptics often argue that families can unconsciously influence children, or that the cultural environment suggests these memories to them. However, in Sukla's case, Stevenson's extremely thorough investigation ruled out these possibilities. The two families had never been in contact before. They had no mutual acquaintances, didn't frequent common places, and there was no channel through which information could have flowed to Sukla. Moreover, the little girl's knowledge was so specific that it would have been difficult to explain even in the case of secret connections between families. Dr. Stevenson said this about Sukla's case. This girl knew such details about a strange family's life that it would have been impossible to learn under normal circumstances. The love she showed toward Minu was so genuine and natural that it's hard to imagine it was merely the result of childish imagination or influence. Sukla's story represents not only scientific interest, but also a deeply human story. A girl who throughout her early life missed someone she claimed to have loved in a previous life. This longing was so strong that it arched over the mystery of death and rebirth and manifested in a new form in a new body. Modern quantum physics opens new perspectives for understanding reincarnation cases. Dr. Stuart Hameroff, one of the leading figures in quantum consciousness research, argues that consciousness is not limited to the brain, and that quantum-level processes occur that might make it possible to preserve information after the death of the physical body. Consciousness is a quantum phenomenon, Hameroff states, and as such, it can survive the death of the physical brain. This approach gives new hope to those who want to understand the phenomenon of reincarnation on scientific grounds. If Hameroff's theory is correct, then Sukla's memories are not paranormal phenomena, but natural consequences of a not yet discovered physical process. Dr. Pim van Lommel, a Dutch cardiologist who dedicated decades to researching near-death experiences, also believes that consciousness is independent of the brain. Consciousness is much more than what the brain produces, says van Lommel. Sukla's case and similar cases suggest that consciousness has an aspect that survives the death of the body and is capable of transferring information from one life to another. Sukla's case also shows how deep and complex human relationships can be. Regardless of whether we believe in reincarnation or not, the story reminds us that maternal love is perhaps one of the strongest forces in the universe. The love Sukla showed toward Minu transcends all rational explanation and speaks to the heart of all of us. Dr. Bruce Grayson, professor of psychiatry at the University of Virginia and one of the leading figures in near-death experience research, states, "Sukla's case and similar cases force us to reconsider what we know about the nature of consciousness. If consciousness truly can survive the death of the body, it would change not only medicine, but also our understanding of human nature and death." Reincarnation research continues worldwide, and Sukla Gupta's case remains one of the most convincing examples that consciousness can survive the death of the body. Stevenson's work is now continued by Dr. Jim Tucker at the University of Virginia, who studies these extraordinary cases with new methods and technology. Tucker pays particular attention to children who show not only memories, but also birthmarks or physical characteristics that might be connected to their previous lives. Birthmarks and physical deformities often correspond exactly to the injuries that caused the previous person's death, Tucker explains. This is a level of evidence that's very difficult to explain without reincarnation. In Sukla's case, although there were no birthmarks, the behavioral patterns and emotional reactions were so clear that they provided convincing evidence in themselves. The little girl's natural maternal behavior toward Minu, the appropriate respect and love for family members, and her ability to navigate the house, all suggested that Mana's memories truly lived within her. Modern neurology also provides new tools for examining reincarnation cases. fMRI and other imaging procedures can help understand how the brain works in children who claim reincarnation memories. Dr. Andrew Newberg, who researches the brain's spiritual functions, believes that these children might be using brain areas that normally remain inactive. After Sukla became an adult, she gradually lost her childhood memories, which is characteristic of reincarnation cases. Most children begin to forget details of their previous lives around age 6. This might be because new life experiences gradually overwrite the old ones, or because brain development changes the processes that allow these memories to be preserved. Nevertheless, Sukla's family will always remember that special period when a little girl spoke about another life with such convincing love and detail, as if it had been yesterday. This experience forever changed the family's worldview and strengthened their belief that death is not the end of existence, but merely a transition. Today, when Sukla's story happened more than 60 years ago, we can still learn from it. The story reminds us that human consciousness and love might be much greater and more mysterious than we imagine. Whether we believe in reincarnation or not, Sukla's case shows that there are phenomena in life that transcend everyday experiences. Using Dr. Stevenson's closing words, Sukla's case reminds us that we still have much to learn about human consciousness and nature. This little girl might be a window into a reality we don't yet fully understand, but which might be crucial for understanding the deepest secrets of human existence. The story's ultimate lesson might be that love, especially maternal love, is so strong that it can survive death and manifest in new forms. Sukla's love toward Minu wasn't learned behavior or imitation, but something much deeper and more ancient. This love reminds us that human relationships might be much more lasting and significant than we think. If you're interested in such reincarnation stories and spirituality topics, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share this video with those who are also open to these deep questions. Write in the comments what you think about Sukla's case. Do you believe she was truly Mana's reincarnation? Or do you think there's another explanation for this extraordinary story? Your opinion matters to us because these questions touch all of us, and together we can seek the answers.